Dear Church, this coming Sunday is Trinity Sunday, and it has been a week. On Monday, we remember the lives of over 100,000 people who have died due to the coronavirus in the United States alone. The memory of these untimely deaths in our country is forever bound up with stories of other untimely deaths. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. These are the names of people who have died this past year through excessive violence meted out because of the color of their skin. And it's worth noting that there are many more names. This coming Sunday, as I said before, is Trinity Sunday. This is the day when we praise and worship our God who is both three in one. Our God is a relational God. Jesus doesn't say, it's all about me. God, the Creator, doesn't say, it's all about me. The Holy Spirit doesn't say, it's all about me. The Trinity reminds us that God's way of love is relational. And as presiding Bishop Michael Curry often reminds us, the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is selfishness. This week, I have had to remind myself not to be selfish. This week, I have had to listen to the voices of people of color before speaking for myself. This week, I have had to remember that these are matters of life or death for someone, if not me. This week, I have had to rein in my selfish desire to defend myself and say, at least I'm not as bad as that person over there. I'm not a racist. And yet, the way of love compels me, compels all of us to look deeply at ourselves and recognize the ways that racism still affects the ways that we think and feel and act. We must not be selfish, but we have to be self-aware. We have to recognize that each one of us has a part to play in all of this. I've seen many quotes from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King this past week. I'm reminded of the legacy of a man who was much more radical than we sometimes make him out to be. This is the quote that keeps coming back to me. King says, "We are all a part of an inescapable network of mutuality, tied together in a single garment of destiny. I cannot be who I ought to be until you are who you ought to be. And you cannot be who you ought to be until I am who I ought to be." This is the essence of the Trinity. This is the essence of our common life together. And so, if you are wondering what you should be doing today to bring God's kingdom a little bit closer to this world, start with yourself. Bring your frustration to God. Bring your grief to God. Bring your confusion to God. Bear the most uncomfortable truths about yourself before God and ask, what does the Lord require of me today? Change can begin on the streets. It can begin in a book that opens our eyes to see the world differently. It can begin in our common worship together, yes, even on Zoom. But change always has to begin in our hearts, and it has to spill over into our actions and our lives and everything we do. We have a lot to look forward to this coming Sunday. A sermon drama by the Trinity players, more singing and worshiping together. As you prepare for this Trinity Sunday, remember that our God is a relational God. Remember that we are all caught up in a single garment of destiny. Remember that I cannot be who I ought to be until you are who you ought to be. And you cannot be who you ought to be until I am who I ought to be.